You probably think the most defining moments of your life are these massive milestones, like graduations or promotions, moving cities, maybe falling in love.
Right, the big cinematic moments.
Exactly. But if you actually talk to sociologists and behavioral scientists,
Yep.
they will tell you that you're looking in completely the wrong place. The actual architecture of human endeavor, the thing that truly dictates the trajectory of your life, is your boring, totally mundane daily routine.
Yeah, it really is the absolute baseline of our existence. And I mean, what makes it so critical is that because it feels so mundane, we tend to just put it on autopilot. We completely stop questioning it.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a really fascinating stack of material for you. We are pulling from sociological encyclopedias, behavioral psychology research, and even some highly effective language learning frameworks.
Which is a really fun mix of sources, honestly.
It is. And our goal today is to explore something you experience every single day, but probably rarely think critically about: your daily routine. Because the sources reveal that the architecture of our everyday life is actually the non-negotiable reality of human endeavor. So today, we're going to learn how to master this reality so we just don't feel overwhelmed by it.
I love that phrase, non-negotiable reality. It's the perfect lens for this.
Mm-hmm.
Sociologists define everyday life as this essential, taken for granted continuum of activity. It's the invisible water we swim in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Take human diurnality, for example. Just the simple biological fact that humans are diurnal, meaning, we sleep during the night, we're active in the day, we need to eat 2 or 3 meals. That universally shapes the structure of society.
It is so wild to step back and think about that. That simple biological rhythm is the same reason we have these massive synchronized macro events. It's why millions of people experience the morning rush hour simultaneously.
Right, or why the afternoon drive time exists on the radio.
Exactly, or a dinner rush at a restaurant. We are all moving in this synchronized wave, dictated entirely by biology.
And what's fascinating here is that because it is so synchronized and repeated over and over, week after week, much of it becomes entirely automatic. There's this social psychologist, John A. Barg, who has researched this automaticity extensively.
Yeah, we saw a lot of his work in the notes.
Yeah, and he points out that a huge portion of our daily life is not driven by conscious choice at all. Instead, it's driven by environmental features. So you are just reacting to cues in your environment on complete autopilot.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if so much of what we do is automatic, are we just sleepwalking through this non-negotiable reality? I mean, I always like to think of my morning as a blank page in a notebook, right? Like I'm the author.
Yeah.
Do we actually have any control?
We do, but we have to understand the mechanism first. This automaticity, it's actually a survival mechanism. It is not a bug in the system.
Wait, really? It's on purpose?
Oh, absolutely. The human brain consumes a massive amount of energy. Roughly 20% of your body's total energy, which is huge considering it's just a fraction of your weight. So to conserve that precious energy, the brain actively looks for behaviors it can automate.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, when you do something repeatedly, your brain shifts the cognitive load from the highly active prefrontal cortex, which handles all that complex decision-making, down to the basal ganglia, which just handles habit and pattern recognition.
So that's why I can drive all the way to work and suddenly realize I don't remember the last 4 intersections. My prefrontal cortex was off thinking about a meeting, and my basal ganglia was just, driving the car.
Precisely. It's an incredibly efficient system. However, there is a profound sociological consequence to this that the literature points out. This autopilot reality does not historically impact everyone equally.
Right.
Yeah, maintaining the environment that actually allows for this automaticity to happen, that burden has fallen heavily on specific groups. Sociological texts note that women, for instance, have long been viewed as the quintessential representatives and sometimes victims of everyday life.
I want to pause on that because that is a massive insight. When you say the burden of maintaining the environment, you're talking about invisible labor.
Exactly. The mental load.
The project management of the mundane, like someone have to buy the groceries so the whole breakfast habit can actually happen.
Right. Someone has to do the laundry, so the routine of getting dressed on autopilot works. For a family's daily routine to function smoothly, someone is carrying this massive, unseen cognitive load.
Yeah, and managing those automatic routines for entire households, that requires constant anticipation and planning. So if you are the one carrying that load, your prefrontal cortex is already working overtime before you even leave the house.
Absolutely. It's exhausting.
And this connects perfectly to what happens when our routines start to break down. Because we are so reliant on this energy-saving autopilot, our brains start to just crash when we are suddenly forced to make too many conscious choices early in the day.
Which brings us to a very subtle but critical distinction in human behavior: the gap between simply waking up and actually getting up.
I mean, physically, sure, I get it. One involves lying there with your eyes open and one involves standing up. But cognitively, what is actually happening in that gap?
Well, it is the ultimate danger zone for decision fatigue. Waking up is just a shift in consciousness, right? You open your eyes, getting up is an action. But that gap between those two moments is often filled with a barrage of micro-decisions.
Oh, like checking your phone or trying to figure out what to wear.
Exactly. And decision fatigue is a real, measurable depletion of your cognitive resources.
Yeah.
That prefrontal cortex we mentioned earlier. It doesn't care if you are making a massive strategic business decision or deciding between eggs and toast. Every single choice draws from the same finite pool of mental energy.
So what does this all mean for us? Like, if I think of my mental energy as a phone battery, am I literally draining my capacity for a 2 p.m. meeting by spending 10 minutes at 7 a.m. just staring into my closet trying to pick a shirt?
You absolutely are. You are spending highly valuable cognitive battery life on incredibly low-stakes decisions.
Wow.
So when you finally get to the complex tasks later in the day, your battery is already at 20%. This is why the behavioral research heavily recommends pushing those low-stakes decisions to the night before.
Right, like laying out your clothes or prepping the coffee machine or just having your breakfast already planned out.
And, crucially, outlining your tasks. But, and this is important, not just a massive, overwhelming to-do list. The behavioral consensus is to write down your top 3 priority tasks for the next day.
Just 3.
Just 3. If you look at a historical document of 20 unfinished tasks from the past week, the moment you wake up, your brain processes that as an immediate threat. You feel behind before your feet even hit the floor.
Yeah, that's an instant stress spike. I hate that feeling.
Right. So by choosing those 3 priorities the night before, you bypass the morning decision-making process entirely. You turn the morning routine into second nature.
You're giving your basal ganglia the script so your prefrontal cortex can stay fully charged.
Exactly.
It is such a powerful way to frame it. Because if we don't manage this mental energy in the morning, our depleted brains become incredibly vulnerable later in the day. And when that cognitive battery is low, we start seeking out the path of least resistance, which opens the door to external forces that actively steal our time.
Ah, the dreaded time thieves. This is where modern environmental cues just weaponize our fatigue against us.
Yeah, we saw this discussed across multiple psychological texts. Time thieves are basically things that consume your time without offering any good in return. And endless scrolling on social media is like the most universally recognized example today.
Oh, for sure.
There's this highly relatable anecdote from the research. You're working, you hit a wall, your brain feels tired, so you sit on the sofa for what you promise yourself will be a 10-minute break.
Right, just a quick reset. I'll just watch one video.
Yeah, just one more. And then an hour and 15 minutes later, you are still on the sofa. And the worst part isn't even the lost hour, it's the psychological aftermath. You don't feel rested. You feel empty, a little guilty, and honestly more lethargic than before you sat down.
Because it's a complete illusion of rest. What's happening neurologically is those algorithms are designed to provide rapid, variable dopamine hits.
Right.
So your brain thinks it's being rewarded, but your cognitive resources are actually still being drained by processing this chaotic stream of information. You aren't resting, you're just being passively entertained.
It's like time just slipping away like sand through your fingers.
Exactly. And this vulnerability to time thieves often pairs with another trap for the fatigued brain, which is overcommitting.
Oh, saying yes to things just to avoid the friction of saying no.
Yes. When our cognitive battery is low, defending our boundaries just requires way too much effort. So we accept another task, another meeting, just trying not to disappoint people. We end up completely overwhelmed.
Like a brain with way too many browser tabs open.
That's the exact analogy behavioral psychologists use. The system doesn't just slow down. Eventually, it crashes completely.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting to me. If we take all this advice, right, we lock out the time thieves, we defend our boundaries, we plan our mornings the night before. But wait, if we do all that, are we supposed to be perfectly productive robots 24/7? Because honestly, that sounds like a recipe for a total breakdown.
It absolutely is a recipe for a breakdown. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the goal of a routine is not constant output. That hyper-optimized robot mentality completely misunderstands the fundamental purpose of rest.
Okay, how so?
Rest is not a waste of time. It is not a reward for productivity either. Rest is charging the battery. You wouldn't expect your phone to run for 3 days straight without being plugged in. You cannot expect your mind and body to function without real recovery.
So a realistic routine requires flexibility.
Immense flexibility, yeah. Real life is unpredictable. If your standard routine involves a 30-minute workout and you have just an exhausting day at work, the rigid mindset says, well, I don't have energy for 30 minutes, so I'll just do nothing.
Right, the all-or-nothing trap.
Exactly. But the flexible mindset says, I will do a 5-minute stretch. If a normal day is cooking a balanced dinner, a difficult day means making a sandwich. One bad day shouldn't derail the entire routine.
So if we don't need to be productive robots, how do we intentionally use the time we do have without feeling overwhelmed? We actually look to a really surprising place for this: language learners.
It's a brilliant place to look. People who successfully learn complex languages like English or Mandarin as adults, while working full-time, they don't have empty schedules. They operate in the margins of life.
Right, they extract these brilliant productivity frameworks. They introduce this concept of pocket time. The framework basically asks you to treat your time like coins in your pocket.
Which makes so much sense.
Yeah. We rarely have massive 1-hour blocks of free time, but we all have these 5-minute coins, right? Waiting for the bus, boiling water, standing in line for coffee.
And what do most people do with those coins? They throw them away by pulling out their phone and mindlessly scrolling?
Exactly. But linguists know that if you collect these 5-minute coins and combine them with what they call tiny plans, they compound into something huge. Tiny plans are basically giving your day a specific GPS address.
If you get into your car and start driving without a GPS, you are going to drive in circles. Saying, I want to improve my English today, that's far too vague. You end up driving in circles.
Right, but a tiny plan is like, I will learn 3 words while waiting for my coffee. That is the clear destination.
And it bypasses the prefrontal cortex again because the plan is already made.
I do want to challenge this a bit, though. One of the sources uses this analogy that time is like water in a bottle. If you pour it on the floor, you can't drink it later. So we have to protect it. But if we are constantly collecting all these time coins and filling every gap with a tiny plan, are we just obsessively hoarding pennies? At what point is it okay to just toss a coin in a fountain and totally zone out?
That is a very valid pushback. The distinction we need to make here is between being distracted and being intentional.
Okay, so doing something on purpose.
Exactly. If you decide, I have 10 minutes before my next call, I'm going to sit on this bench and do absolutely nothing. That is not a waste of time. That is active recovery. The danger lies in letting the time disappear by accident. It's when you intend to rest, but instead get hijacked by a time thief that leaves you drained.
Right, so small steps add up, but they must be balanced.
Doing something on purpose, even relaxing, is perfectly fine.
And this level of intentionality, it shouldn't just exist during our productive daytime hours. It is just as crucial when the workday ends and we need to physically and mentally shift gears.
The art of the evening routine. This is where modern workers struggle the most because of the blurred lines of technology. We confuse physically closing a laptop with mentally stopping work.
Oh, absolutely. You shut your computer at 5:30, but your brain is still replaying a tense conversation from the morning or worrying about an email.
Which is why the concept of decompressing is absolutely vital. Decompressing is this active process of slowly releasing stress. You need a bridge between work mode and rest mode.
And the sources had specific examples for this bridge. Taking a short walk right after work, cooking a simple one-pan meal, to avoid the stress of a massive pile of dishes.
And the physical signal of changing out of your work clothes. Putting on comfortable clothes physically communicates to your nervous system that the active part of the day is over.
I love that idea of changing clothes. But I have to ask, isn't lying in bed watching short videos on your phone a valid way to decompress for some people? Like, it feels relaxing in the moment.
This raises an important question. It feels like decompression, but the sources show that going straight from a high-stimulation work screen to a high-stimulation phone screen often leaves you feeling more tired. Your nervous system is still in a heightened state of arousal. True decompression requires a mental transition.
So how do we get that mental transition?
The behavioral research points to a tactic known as cleaning the mental desk. It leverages the Zeigarnik effect.
Wait, what's that?
It's the psychological tendency to remember uncompleted tasks better than completed ones. Your brain holds on to unfinished business. So before you finish your workday, you physically write down your unfinished tasks so your brain stops holding on to them.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You're closing the browser tabs in your brain.
Exactly. And that mental clearance allows you to approach the most important stage of the routine. The texts make a critical distinction here between going to bed and going to sleep.
Going to bed is just lying down horizontally. You might still be wide awake, staring at a screen, but going to sleep is the biological state where your eyes are closed.
Right. The great danger of the modern routine is the late night, where you are in bed but delaying sleep through distractions. It's self-sabotage because you are draining your battery for tomorrow before tomorrow even begins.
Which brings us full circle. Ultimately, the routines we build, from that morning blank page to the evening decompression, they form the architecture of our entire lives.
I really do.
So, to summarize our mission today, the goal isn't to wake up at 4 a.m. and run 10 kilometers. It's about building a realistic, intentional routine. Collect your pocket time, avoid decision fatigue by preparing the night before, and remember that resting is just charging the battery.
Flexibility and intention, exactly.
But before we go, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, based on the sociological sources. The text notes that our everyday life is heavily shaped by the rhetoric and language of mass media. So if our routines, our desires, and our habits are constantly being influenced by the media we consume, who's actually writing the script for your daily routine? Are you the author of your own habits, or are you just playing out a schedule designed by algorithms and advertisers?
It's definitely something to think about the next time you pick up your phone on autopilot.
It really is. Thank you so much for investing your pocket time into this deep dive today. We'll catch you next time.